Hello, Alex Lafkus here again. Gonna do a little more tying today. I am gonna tie a flash tail whistler. Okay, Dan Blanton fly, just tied a little bit different. Here is kind of a trout size one that I'm kind of just playing with. We fished these a lot in the early season for smallmouth. You know, you can see this one's got some feathers in the back too. Big, these are tied, you know, these are 7-8 inches. Our inland lake smallmouth do like eating some of this big stuff in the spring. You know, we get them to eat big flies in the spring. So, which is pretty cool. That's why I like fishing for them out there. But I'm tying a few smaller ones for trout. Kind of a, you know, almost looks like a murditch to some degree, but a little different. So what I'm going to do is start with one of the longer shanks. I'm not sure how big these things are. I don't have it written down on the bag I have them in, so I really don't have any idea. But this is a cool fly. The ones we were fishing for bass did not have this shank off the back, and you would get them to foul. You know, you can see on them that we did try to stiffen it up with the bucktail and stuff back there, and that helps to some degree, but they do still foul a little. So I'm gonna start playing with them a little bit more with this shank tied off the back. You can go as heavy on the flash as you want. I'm gonna use this matte finished Flashabou in white because sometimes I don't like a ton of flash, especially for trout. Not all the time. Sometimes I do, but I do lean more away from flash than I lean into it. This is going to have plenty of flash anyway, so it's not like I'm selling anything short here. It's gonna be bright. So I'm using one of these shanks, and I'm using a 2-aught, you know, one of the round bend worm hooks of Gamakatsu's. It's very similar to the Aberdeen Predator that Arex makes, and it's not far from the Partridge J-hook, which is J-hook is the style of hook, kind of long shank, open bend, you know, pretty. It's a gaffin hook, but it was also, as Andres Anderson pointed out to me, it's the one longliners use. So obviously if longliners are using it, it's a pretty effective hook because they want to kill everything. I'm going to mix in some of this Flashabou Mirage Opal color with that matte white, so I get a little sparkle out the back, and I'm just tying them in, you know, kind of over it, so I can use about half as much as I want, and then just add it in, and that's going to be plenty. This Mirage, this Flashabou Mirage, is really bright. So, and I'll trim that, you know, whatever. I kind of want it to be a little long. This is a single hook fly, which I don't really have much of a problem with. Some people I know prefer to do the 2 hooks, but usually when they're eating a bait fish, they're eating it head first. So if I can only have 1 hook on it, you know, there are some times like post spawn when they're really nippy, that's when you'd want to, you know, a back hook. But frankly, not fishing a ton of this type of stuff that time of year anyway. So I'm actually tying this. This is going to end up about 4 to 5 inches, and I'm going to use it for probably mess around with it a little bit this fall, doing pre-spawn stuff. Maybe whip it around for steelhead too, because the steelhead tend to eat like 4-inch stuff way better than 7 to 8. So we're gonna have that. So the next step after tying in my flash is I'm just gonna go straight to bucktail and just kind of taper it back. You know, just give it a little bit of little flare, kind of try to cover up that loop on that shank. Here's the Chartreuse in. I always, whenever I'm going to tie this shank direct to the hook shank too, I tend to do the bottom chunk second when I'm tying in the bucktail. Ooh, look, new scissors. They actually cut. So I actually did take my other pair I had, and like I said I was going to do, put the electrical tape around them so I knew which one were my wire cutters. Oh, it's a beautiful day. Actually, was kind of organizing today and found that I had several packs of new scissors, so it'll be fun to play with. Then we're just going to do a little white belly. Obviously, any color combo you want will work. I'm kind of in need of a little chartreuse and white in my box, so that's what I'm going to do today. And this will give me a couple of different, options to look at for chartreuse and white. I'm probably going to end up tying, like a yellow and ginger or yellow and brown too, with some gold flash out the back. Kind of similar to that flashy deceiver, but this is a little different. This will be a little different presentation, a little different look, just because of the, because you'll see when I do the body, it is a little different, as I showed you in those other ones. So we just kind of measure up that and make sure we're pretty close. Doesn't have to be perfect, but whatever. There you go. 50-50. Oh, that looks good. Okay. There you go. Little chartreuse with a little white belly. These aren't too bad to tie. It is getting used to using bucktail, which once you're used to using bucktail, you'll use it for a lot. I know some people who have just never got comfortable with it, and then they just don't use it much, which is kind of silly, and you're setting yourself back a bit. Just play with it, do it enough, and you'll get good at it. A lot of it comes down to selecting a bucktail, which there's a lot of trial and error in that. So I'm just going to finish this off here with a couple of whip finishes. Oh, that's a little long there. It's going to move around a little. And then this shank is a little longer than what I want it for. So I'm just going to kind of measure it up and just trim it. I'll just cut it short. So you can see how that little bottom is going to end up setting about right there. That's going to be fine. So I'm going to take off, a little bit of this shank with some wire cutters. No big deal. And the other thing you can do, oh yeah, I've got some sitting around. If you don't have these shanks, or they seem a little expensive for what you're getting, which they are, you can go ahead and get they make bent spinner blades that are basically going to be the same thing, and all you need is a little wire bending wrench. Seeing they come like this, so like all you'd have to do is tie that together. Boom, you've got your link. And then if you just wanted to fold the other part with a wire bending tool, you can do the same thing in the front. So quick do-it-yourself shank for at the house. You can see this is a plastic worm hook. It's got the little metal barb sticking out, which I don't care about. So, but I will say that since I am trimming off part of that shank, I will glue this in. So I'm just going to kind of slide that up where I want it, get a couple wraps here. I usually like to do kind of a thread dam or whatever you want to call it here, just to cover up that sharp point of that, so you're not cranking on it and busting your thread a ton. Let's see, there you go. So now that's going to have, it's never going to get to that hook to foul. And that was one of my bigger complaints about it. Well, it wasn't a complaint. I don't really care. It's just what it is. But this is a fly Russ has been tying for a few years. It's one of his kind of bass things that he fishes quite a bit. I'm just, of course, modifying it a little bit. So I'm going to just take this thin loon UV cure. I'm going to paint some of this on there. I don't need a ton, just enough to kind of seed it. I'm going to hit it on all sides. So I'm going to do this first. Oh, and I'm going to cover that thread up good because might as well make it last. Get my little nifty light out. I don't know if I do this right or not. I just kind of give it, you know, 10 seconds or so on each kind of side, area, angle to get it kind of locked in. I've never been able to get this stuff to get really like hard glued done. So it kind of stays a little tacky. So I'll just do a coat of Sally Hansen's quick. It's going to be good enough for what I'm doing. And then I'll hit it with some Sally Hansen's real quick, and that'll give a little more glossy finish. And if you're really production tying them, you know, you can do this, or you want multiple colors or whatever, you can just do this and set them up on something to dry. It won't take long, and then go to your next one and tie a bunch of back ends first. So, but I'm going to give this a second to dry. What I usually do in this time frame, I'm going to add some medium bead chains to the front of this, hence the name Whistler. When you cast bead chain flies, they whistle. And I'm going to pin these right on the eye of the hook, and I'm going to do it on the top. These are not enough weight to throw off your presentation. So that hook will still run riding down. Well, the weight of the hook is enough to offset it. And I'm just going to figure eight it in there a bunch. These don't go much anywhere. And you can drop some glue there if you're worried about it as well. Now I'll just give it a second to dry, and we'll get this started again after I give it a second. All right, so that should be about dry enough, or at least close enough. So next step is just add some filler. This is small pearl Palmer chenille. And I'm just going to kind of fill the little zone till like the hook point. I usually go to the hook point when I'm doing stuff like this because no other reason than I like to clear it for cranking on some bucktail, and it does work out to be about the right length there. So this is just random filler. Whatever you want to use. You could most likely use nothing as well. And just leave a thread base in there, but whatever. And bring it up to about where that hook point is. Tie it off. So we got our little bit of filler. The rest of this fly goes real easy, and you don't need anything super fancy to do it. My material has picked up some random material from laying around. I actually tried to clean around here today, and not sure how well I did, but all right, there we go. I hit my thread on the hook point, so I just made sure to wrap enough to cover it up. So then we're going to do another chunk of chartreuse on top. This happens to be a good chartreuse bucktail. I tied one earlier. Wasn't sure I was going to film this or anything, but I figured, what the hell, it's 90 degrees out. It's the end of August. It's absolutely miserable. So what would I rather do than just tie a few flies and not be outside fishing? Because I don't know, as far as fishing goes, I like seasonal progressions, and once you start getting cold nights and then you start getting warm nights and hot weather, it's usually not the best fishing. You know, like a lot of times, I remember when I was working for fly shops and stuff, people really want to take advantage of that nice weather in late October when you'd get a few warm days. And I don't blame them for wanting to go, but you could have left your fishing rod at home because it was always terrible. So, no, and we're not in that situation yet, but we're not that far off. When your water temps start going up in the fall, versus them having already been going down. Not exactly what we like to see. Alright, so we got a little Chartreuse in there. See how it just flares a little? It's not a ton, but it's enough to get it to kind of stand up and make that profile that you're kind of looking for with bucktail. Look at new scissors. Look at that. Didn't take 3 cuts to get it where I wanted. It's a good thing. And we'll take another little chunk of white. Put this on the body. The underbelly, rather. Chartreuse and white is a good color to fish. I've had some really good days. It seems like it's a weird one. Like some days they just can't leave it alone, and some days they won't touch it. But and a lot of it depends on the river, you know, like I have times on the white where it's not moving a ton, but it'll move a few big ones. I've had times where every fish in the river wants to eat it. So it definitely stays in the rotation. And it stays in the rotation too because it is a lot of fun to fish. One thing I will say, if you notice it, like if you look at the water, sometimes it'll appear kind of greenish, whether it's whatever river you're on. And when you get that green kind of color in the water, that's when I like to run the Chartreuse. You know, you kind of match it up. And we'll come in and add our white. Just kind of cover up that side and belly. That's going to be about right. Okay. So the next step, like this will be pretty easy. Boom, boom. Just a couple chunks of buck hair. That's all it takes. And then I always, like I always do with bucktail or deer hair or any type of hair like that, is just kind of section it off with your thread to get it to really lock in. And that seems to really prevent any of those big slips where you lose a bunch of product or material while you're out there. Trim it down a little bit, doesn't really matter. You're just going to wrap some stuff over it. So the next product I'm using is going to be the Chockletts Filler Flash. Now that product has changed in the last handful of years. It's not as bulky as it was. And for this, I do like that really bulky stuff. So, I don't know what the deal is. I found somebody who had some on their shelf last winter, and I bought a whole bunch of it because I do go through quite a bit of it, especially doing the smallmouth thing in the spring. Like I said, those bass really like it. So you can see probably on this how bulky that material is. Which I kind of like on this. Kind of gives it a little deflector. It bulks up the body a little. And we're just going to go ahead and wrap it in. Just nothing fancy, man. Easy. It's a little different of a fly. Easy to cast. So it really worked well for those bass this spring. Probably worked great on those river fish too. Haven't got not a chance to fish them yet for the river fish, but I'm sure it'll work, especially in these little bit smaller sizes. The ones we were running this spring were just giant. 7-8 inchers, and the bass just fly up. But that pre-spawn bite's kind of like that, especially in a little bit colder water. Them fish really target bigger baits in the inland lakes. They're eating, I think they're eating a lot of big minnows and a lot of 6 and 7 inch perch. You know, that's all of our lakes up here have an absolute ton of perch in them. So that tends to be a pretty big forage base for them. And it's a lot of 4 to 6 inch perch that is, but so we'll just kind of brush some of that filler flash out. And you can see it is a bulky material. There's a lot to it there. Then, as my hook slips a little, then I'm going to dig through a couple of Schlappen packs and find the most mutilated chunks of Schlappen. The ones that are twisted, bent, you just know you're not going to use them for anything other than wrapping them. I'm going to trim the tips, tie it in there, and that's going to be kind of your collar head. But these feathers were absolutely worthless for anything else, which made them a prime candidate for what I'm doing here. And this is going to be, I like it big, you know, and I'm mixing the two colors. I have a chartreuse and a white mixed together. Oh, do what you got around. You know, a lot of these ones we were running were like, for bass, we're in the chartreuse and white, olive and white, yellow and olive, which is kind of perch-ish enough anyway. So baitfish and perch. The other one I like is the Willens Villains color combo, which is like a black, yellow, and white, which I think I showed you earlier. That seems to be on cloudy days a pretty good color to run on the lakes. There we go. And I'm just gonna finish this off right behind these eyeballs. They're bead chain eye things. There we go. That should be enough. See, and you can tell those feathers are trash, or you're not even doing this real well, but whatever. Good enough for who it's for. I'm gonna come in, tie that off. It's gonna be a little sloppy, but whatever. And just kind of brush a little bit of that out before you cinch it all down. Ooh, look, tied a bunch of it in down there, so we'll just kind of peel some of that out. Make sure it gets good and full. Just kind of pop it out. Nice and easy. You don't want to make your thread jump, because then you'll lose all your wraps you already done. There we go. There we go. There we go. And then you can see that stem right there, and I'm going to just make sure I got that locked down a few times behind those bead chain eyes. A lot of what I'm pulling out is still that filler flash, which fills up that body. It's a knotty mess, that filler flash is, but that's all right. And now I'm just going to finish it off right there. You know, I'll take a few wraps just to make sure it's all, you know, covered up. And a prettier. These don't get real pretty because, you know, when you're tying anything up to the eyes, that's just going to be what it's going to be. So there, that's kind of, yeah, that's about right there. So that's kind of the bug. I'm thinking with this tied in to that, straight to that shank too, it's probably going to kick a little bit more side to side, which will be nice. It didn't seem to matter in the spring and the cold water. The biggest concern I had was it fouling. And like I'd mentioned, you know, the brush did, or the bucktail did a pretty good job of keeping it still. But that's basically your fly right there. And that filler flash will help that kind of keep that profile in the front. These are super simple to cast. There's nothing to them, not a ton of weight, just enough to get down. I know Russ has fished them on St. Clair and caught a bunch of fish. So it's definitely proven for bass. I'm gonna fish this one for trout here in a couple of weeks when this water temp starts creeping down again, and we'll be able to report back to you later. But that's gonna work. Cool little bug. So there you go. Flash tail whistler. Flash tail whistler. See that little sparkle on the tail with the white? Super easy fly to tie, fish, everything. I don't know. Like, subscribe, keep me motivated, and I'll keep doing these. But hope you learned something there. Something new to try. Thanks.